Nicole Vallestero Keenan, and I'm a Senior Research and Policy Analyst at Puget Sound SAGE. And Puget Sound SAGE is a local and regional think tank and coalition organization that focuses on what families need to thrive. So we define what families need to thrive as a good job, a place to live near that job, and a clean and healthy environment. And we work in coalition with many community groups in the region to identify issues and provide research, analysis, and coalition support. And so I'm the co-author of the economic impact analysis of a minimum wage increase in the city of SeaTac, and have spent well over the last year and a half studying in-depth living wage and minimum wage policies at the city level. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about what I found and what we've seen happen in other cities, and then really go into some of the data of what we could see in Seattle. So briefly, I'll talk about what we found when we were looking at a $15 wage in SeaTac. And so we found that the economic impact would be a $54 million income boost for the local economy. And that's just talking about 6,000 workers that could be covered. So when we look at the city of Seattle, we're talking about a much larger and a different type of income boost that would help our local economy. We found that the need for government assistance, particularly for single people using food stamps, would go down. And so one of the most important things that we found is that, large businesses and their employees would no longer have to rely on as much government assistance to get by. And now, what happened in SeaTac? So 3 months later, it's now been 3 months and a couple weeks since the living wage in SeaTac was implemented, and businesses are generally doing fine. So one of the businesses that was in main opposition of the $15 wage in SeaTac actually just announced a $16 million expansion for their hotel. And so the reason why they're expanding their hotel is because they want to make sure that they build more revenue to be able to pay their workers more wages. And so it actually shows this idea that when people make more, businesses also do better. I'm going to talk briefly about San Jose and San Francisco Airport, but only because I want to get to the Seattle data.
I'm sorry, could I ask you a quick question about SeaTac? Will SAGE be able to check in will you guys do a longer study of what happens in SeaTac?
So there's a number of different groups that are looking into a longer study of what could happen in SeaTac, and some of them have pretty vast resources, so we want to make sure that we coordinate well on what a post-eval could look like. But it won't happen in the next couple months, I assure you that.
I can't remember, though, are you guys part of that team that's going to be looking at it overall, or is it a different set of players?
So there's several sets of players that are communicating with each other to figure it out right now.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
No worries. So with San Jose, they implemented a $10 minimum wage in 2013, and our sister organization in San Jose actually played a pretty instrumental role in looking at what this would mean. And they actually found a year later that employment and the number of businesses in the city of San Jose increased. And so that might sound counterintuitive, but when you look at and you're trying to understand the impact of an increased minimum wage on a city, it's better to look at the total employment and total number of firms in a city a year later to understand what the impact could be. There's a number of different anecdotes, one way or another, that says it was great, that says it was terrible. I think the best way to understand what happened is to look at the data and understand that, in fact, there's little to no effect on employment when it comes to an increased minimum wage. And in some cases, we actually see employment go up. And so I'll actually just skip ahead to the data in Seattle. And over the next few weeks, we'll be releasing a series of different blog posts and data about what the impact of increased minimum wage will be. And so you'll get more data as we find out more. So specifically, what does an increase in the minimum wage mean for the city of Seattle? So right now, what your race is and what your gender is tied to how much you make in the city of Seattle. So you'll see here that people of color and women make between 44% and 71% of what white men earn in the city of Seattle. And let me kind of point some other features of this out. So on the low end, the median earnings for Black or African women is $23,000 a year. compared to what white men earn, which is $52,000 a year in the city of Seattle. And so this is looking at residents again. And across race and ethnicity, for the most part, the men earn slightly more than women, with the most pronounced difference being between what white men earn and white women earn in the city of Seattle. So we argue, why is there this race and why is there this gender pay gap? One of the reasons we argue that this exists is because women and people of color are overrepresented in low-wage industries in our region. So this is a breakdown we received from the Employment Security Department that looks at specific industries by 3-digit industry codes and how many folks they estimate make under $12 an hour and under $15 an hour. And this is looking at full-time equivalents in King County. So for some places that hire a lot of part-time folks, you're going to see a larger amount of jobs. So this is looking at full-time jobs. And you'll see that 63% of people working in food services and drinking places in King County make under $15 an hour. 54% of folks that work in social assistance make under 15. 55% or 54% of folks that work in nursing and residential care facilities make under 15 an hour. And a lot of folks that work in social assistance and nursing and residential care have a high amount of certifications and degrees to do that work, but they make very low wages. And then you'll see food and beverage stores, 46%, and in hotels accommodation, 55% of people make below $15 an hour. We also have the comparisons for 12, which are still pretty high. You'll see 44% of people working at food and services and drinking places make under $12 an hour. So what's the breakdown of people of color and women in these industries? So the easiest one to understand are food service. So people of color make up only 30% of the workforce, but represent 45% of the people that work in food service and food service occupations. And although women only make up 46% of Seattle's workforce, we make up 70 and 66% of healthcare and community and human services. And so when you think about why do we have such a large pay and gender gap, one of the main reasons is that we are overrepresented in low-wage industries. So that's the end of my presentation, and if you have any questions, happy to answer them.
I have one quick one. You know, and I appreciate that you guys are doing the data stuff because it is really helpful. One of the things that people have said as well, in terms of being able to measure business performance after an increase in the minimum wage or employment levels, that there hasn't been a jurisdiction that has taken a jump of this scale. And how do you guys look at the data and figure out whether it's really comparable?
So there actually have been jurisdictions that have taken a jump at this scale. So Santa Fe in 2004 increased their minimum wage from $5.15 an hour to $8.40 or $8.50 an hour, which represented a 65% increase, which is what we're looking at today. And there was a study conducted in 2009 that showed that there was no employment effect in Santa Fe in particular. If you look at industry-specific living wage bumps, so San Francisco implemented a living wage policy in the year 2000, and screeners in particular, security screeners, saw a 75% increase in their wages. And there was no disemployment effect, and in fact, the demographics of the workforce remain the same. So we're not talking about this idea that they're going to go hire different people to replace the low-wage workers, that those demographics actually remained the same at San Francisco's airport.
Security screeners is one of those elements, categories where I think we all want them to be paid more.
Right?
I agree. And also, just to add to what Nicole said, in Washington State, in 1991, I think, when the minimum wage, the state minimum wage, which is a higher minimum wage, the initiative included restaurant workers, food service industry. That was an 85% jump in the wage for the entire industry, and the industry is doing great.